The fluorescent hum of the ninth floor, the stale, over-roasted scent of the break room coffee that's been burning on the hot plate since 7 a.m., the phantom vibration of your phone in your pocket, pulling your pulse up into your throat before you even check the screen. You know the feeling, the tightness in your chest when an email from the senior vice president lands at 9:47 p.m., and the unspoken rule demands a response before midnight. You keep talking, keep explaining, keep justifying your existence in endless Slack threads and defensive reply-alls, hoping that if you just make enough noise, they'll finally see your value. But the more you speak, the more you disappear. There is an ancient firewall for this modern burnout. The Romans called it the architecture of silence. Comitas, the quiet authority of self-control. Gravitas, the gravitational weight of undeniable presence. And Prudentia, the foresight to know when not to speak at all. This is the story of Samantha Jones, a PR crisis manager who had everything the corporate world said would make her happy, and it was destroying her. Who is Samantha Jones at 8:15 a.m. on a Tuesday? She is a 32-year-old PR crisis manager sprinting through the frostbitten streets of Boston, her teeth chattering in the February wind, a half-eaten granola bar turning to paste in her mouth. What is she doing beneath the surface of her tailored coat? She is typing a rapid-fire defense of a client's latest scandal on her phone, thumbs moving like pistons, while dodging commuters pouring out of the State Street T station. Where is the space for her own thoughts? It has been entirely consumed by the relentless pinging of her smartwatch, vibrating against her wrist with the urgency of a hospitalized vital sign monitor. When does she have a moment, actually, to process the information she is disseminating? She doesn't. The calendar invites stack on top of each other, a Tetris game moving at terminal velocity, leaving her only enough time to react, never to reflect. Why does she subject herself to this punishing regimen? Because in the ecosystem of the modern office, the alternative, being overlooked, being silent, being deemed irrelevant, is a professional death sentence. How does she survive the onslaught? By talking. By filling every vacuum of air in every boardroom with rapid pivots, counter-narratives, and corporate jargon so dense it chokes the oxygen right out of the room. It is a Thursday afternoon, a high-stakes steering committee on the 14th floor. The air conditioning is blasting, carrying the faint, artificial scent of ozone and dry erase markers. Samantha has just spent 45 minutes dissecting a media crisis. Her voice is hoarse, her PowerPoint deck dense with data, her pacing frantic. She has anticipated every question, answered every objection, and filled every second of dead air with the sound of her own expertise. She pauses to take a sip of her iced water. The plastic cup sweats onto the mahogany table. The Vice President of Communications, a man in a bespoke suit who has been leaning back in his chair with his eyes half closed, looks right past her. He turns to a junior associate sitting in the corner and says, "Okay, but what's the actual strategy here?" Samantha's hand freezes. The ice clinks against the plastic. She is invisible. All her words, all her desperate, frantic noise, have canceled each other out. The man didn't hear her because she didn't allow him the space to listen. The room moves on, leaving her standing at the head of the table, a ghost haunting her own presentation. Her throat tightens, but she forces a nod, a tight professional smile, pulling at the corners of her mouth. The internal machinery kicks in, the lie that has kept her tethered to the grind for a decade. If I just work harder, speak faster, be louder, I'll finally feel safe. I'll finally be undeniable. But safety never comes. There is only the next crisis, the next email, the next void to fill with noise. Samantha finds him on the outskirts of Cambridge, in a dimly lit lounge that smells of aged leather, polished mahogany, and the faint, distant burn of a cigar. Silas Vance. He is a retired titan of Boston corporate law, a man who used to orchestrate hostile takeovers that shook the city's financial district. but who now seems entirely untouched by the frantic, vibrating energy of the modern office. He doesn't have a smartphone sitting on the table. There is no laptop in sight, just an analog watch, a glass of neat bourbon, and a stillness about him that makes the room feel heavier, more grounded. Samantha is there to recruit him for an advisory board position. But the interview quickly turns into an interrogation of her own life. She pitches, she ramifies, she over-explains. She talks about her billable hours, her client retention rates, and her crisis turnaround metrics. Silas listens. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't check his watch. He just watches her with an unnerving, quiet focus, letting the silence stretch between them until it becomes agonizing. It is a silence that demands a response, and because Samantha doesn't know how to exist in a vacuum, she keeps talking until she runs out of air. When she finally stops, her chest heaving slightly, Silas leans forward. The leather of his chair groans in the quiet room. Are you building a career, Samantha, or are you building a cage? The question hits her like a physical blow. She opens her mouth to defend herself, to cite another metric, but no words come out. The silence of the lounge swallows her corporate bravado whole. Silas doesn't offer platitudes. He offers a mirror. He represents Gravitas, the sheer, immovable weight of a man who no longer needs to announce his presence to command a room. He knows that her frantic talking is just a shield, and a flimsy one at that. It is the armor of someone terrified of being found out. He looks at her, and then he asks the question that should keep every single person watching this up at night. If your job title were stripped away tomorrow, what remains of your dignitas? What is your inherent unshakable worth? When the corporate badge is taken off your chest, when the email signature is deleted, when the Slack status goes dark, if you cannot answer that, you do not own your career. Your career owns you. You are not a professional. You are a prisoner making noise to distract the warden. Silas doesn't hand Samantha a self-help book or a link to a mindfulness podcast. He gives her a directive. Wake up tomorrow at 4 a.m. Do not check your phone. Do not make coffee. Do not read the news. Sit in the dark in your living room for 30 minutes. Just sit. Do not speak. Do not plan. Do not solve. Just exist. It sounds absurd. A PR crisis manager whose entire livelihood depends on anticipating the next narrative, doing nothing, but she is desperate enough to try. The next morning, at 4 a.m., her alarm pierces the dark of her Beacon Hill apartment. The winter cold is biting through the old window panes. Her instinct is to grab the phone, to check the overnight crisis reports, to see if a client has imploded on the other side of the world. The phantom vibrations pulse through her nervous system, her cortisol spiking before her feet even hit the floor. But she forces herself to leave the phone on the nightstand. She walks into the living room. The silence is deafening. It feels like a threat. Her brain screams at her to do something, to solve something, to optimize this quiet time. She sits on the edge of the sofa. The minutes crawl by. It is agonizing. To understand why this is so painful and why it is so necessary, we have to look at the collision of modern neuroscience and ancient Roman philosophy. Let's look at your brain in the modern office. You exist in a chronic cortisol loop. Every Slack notification, every urgent email, every passive-aggressive meeting comment triggers your amygdala, the brain's primal threat detection center. It signals your adrenal glands to pump cortisol and adrenaline. In a state of nature, this saves your life from a predator. In a state of corporate America, it paralyzes your prefrontal cortex, the center of executive function, logic, and prudentia. You are literally operating in a state of low-grade fight or flight all day, every day. And because your brain is a prediction machine, it craves the dopamine hit of resolving a minor issue. So you create noise. You send emails that don't need sending. You talk in circles. You fill the silence because silence feels like vulnerability. The Romans understood this biological reality thousands of years before the MRI scan. Comitas, quiet authority and self-possession, cannot exist when your nervous system is flooded with cortisol. Gravitas cannot be projected when your prefrontal cortex is offline and your amygdala is running the show. By sitting in absolute silence at 4 a.m., Samantha is actively breaking the cortisol loop. She is denying the brain the dopamine of distraction. She is forcing the amygdala to stand down, allowing the prefrontal cortex to slowly, painfully, come back online. She is training her nervous system to tolerate the void instead of rushing to fill it. She is building the neurological infrastructure for Prudentia, the foresight to see the trap before she steps in it. By Thursday, something shifts. Samantha walks into a war room on the 14th floor. A minor celebrity client has just tanked their brand with a late-night, ill-advised Twitter rant. The room is panicking. VPs are shouting over each other, their voices bouncing off the glass walls. Senior directors are pitching desperate spin cycles, talking over one another in a cacophony of corporate fear. The air is thick with sweat and stale cologne. Samantha's instinct flares. Join the fray, be the loudest, prove her worth with a rapid-fire defense. But then, she pauses. She feels the phantom vibration in her pocket, the familiar spike of cortisol. She takes a breath, engaging the silence she practiced at 4 a.m. She lets the noise wash over her. She watches the chaos with detachment. She waits, and then she speaks. Not a flood of words, not a frantic pitch, but a single devastating sentence that cuts through the hysteria like a blade. We don't spin, we retract, apologize, and pivot to the charity partnership now. The room goes dead silent. The VPs stop mid-sentence. Every head turns. They don't see a frantic crisis manager desperately trying to justify her paycheck. They see Gravitas. They see Comitas. They see a woman who doesn't need to yell to be heard. A woman who commands the room because she isn't afraid of the silence. For the first time in her career, she feels the power of her own restraint. It's a partial win, a glimpse of the empire she could build within herself. She walks out of that room feeling 10 feet tall, the phantom vibrations finally silenced. But the corporate world does not reward silence without testing it. Friday morning, 6 a.m., her phone rings. Then it rings again. Then it explodes. She looks at the screen, the harsh blue light illuminating her face in the dark bedroom. A massive corporate restructuring. Her division is being swallowed whole by a rival agency in New York. And sitting at the top of her inbox is an email from the CEO, marked urgent. The subject line, a cold corporate indictment of her recent quietness. The message is brief. Samantha, we need to talk about your role. My office, 8 a.m. Do not be late. The storm has arrived. It is 5:14 a.m. in Boston. The sky over the harbor is a bruised, suffocating purple. Samantha sits on the edge of her bed, the CEO's email still glowing like a threat on her phone screen. The apartment is freezing. The radiator hasn't kicked in yet. Her breath plumes in the pale light of the screen. The old Samantha, the one who built her entire identity on being the fastest mouth in the room, is panicking. Her chest is tight, her jaw clenched so hard her molars ache. The corporate instinct screams at her, draft the defense, compile the metrics, show them you are indispensable, fill the void before they fill it for you. She picks up the phone, her thumb hovers over the keyboard. But the silence of the room, the agonizing, suffocating silence she has been practicing at 4 a.m., presses down on her. She feels the phantom weight of her job title slipping away, and the terror is physical. It sits in her gut like a stone. If she isn't the girl who fixes everything with a flurry of words, who is she? If she isn't the frantic crisis manager running on adrenaline and stale coffee, what remains? The fear is paralyzing. She wants to quit the system. She wants to run back to the cage, because at least in the cage, the bars are familiar. At least when she was a people pleaser, she got pats on the head, performance bonuses, and the fleeting, toxic high of being needed. She calls Silas. The phone rings once, twice. He answers, his voice low, gravelly, untouched by panic. I can't do it. Samantha whispers, her voice cracking. She is pacing now, her bare feet cold on the hardwood floor. They're going to fire me. They're restructuring. They think I've gone soft because I'm not yelling in the war room anymore. I need to go in there and explain. I need to justify my value. I need to stop, Silas says. The word is a guillotine dropping. You are whimpering, Samantha. You are begging to be let back into the kennel because the open field is too cold. It's not just cold, Silas. It's a trap. She shoots back, the adrenaline spiking. This is my career, my livelihood. You're asking me to walk into a firing squad unarmed. I am asking you to armor yourself, Silas replies, his voice dropping an octave, heavy with the weight of Gravitas. You think the Roman way is about feeling better? You think Comitas and Prudentia are spa treatments for your burnout? They are not. The Roman way is not about feeling better. It is about being harder to break. Samantha stops pacing. The silence stretches between them, tethering her to the present moment. Your anxiety right now, Silas continues, his tone unyielding, is the withdrawal of your addiction to their approval. You are mourning the loss of your chains. When you walk into that office today, you do not beg, you do not explain. You let the silence do the work, you let them wonder. Because a woman who does not scramble to justify her existence is a woman they cannot control. And if they fire you for your silence, then you never owned the job in the first place. Now hang up the phone and go take your city, 8 a.m., the executive floor. The air here is different. It's a sterile, climate-controlled chill, carrying the faint, chemical scent of dry cleaning solvent from the senior partner's tailored suits, and the sharp, bitter tang of freshly brewed espresso from the corner suite. The carpet is thick, swallowing the sound of footsteps, a deliberate design choice that forces you to look up, to acknowledge the power dynamics of the room before you even speak. Samantha walks into the CEO's office. 3 people are already seated. CEO Marcus Thorne, a man whose smile never reaches his eyes, is leaning forward, his elbows on the mahogany desk. Beside him is Julian Croft, the slick, fast-talking VP of the acquiring New York firm. Julian is already talking before Samantha even sits down. Samantha, we're looking at a major brand integration, Julian says, his voice slick as oil. He slides a thick, bound prospectus across the desk. The New York team feels we need a proactive, aggressive PR blitz. We need a voice out there spinning the synergy, drowning out the market noise. We need you on every financial news network by Monday. Non-stop, maximum volume. The old Samantha would have jumped at this. It was validation. It was the golden ticket of the people pleaser. They need my voice. They need my noise. She would have started brainstorming out loud, filling the room with her energy, proving her worth in real time. Instead, she sits. She places her hands flat on the armrests of the leather chair. She feels the cool, smooth texture against her palms. She anchors herself. She does not reach for the prospectus. She does not speak. She looks at Julian. Then, she slowly shifts her gaze to Marcus. The silence in the room becomes a living, breathing entity. The hum of the HVAC system seems to amplify. Julian's smile falters. Just a fraction. He isn't used to silence. He is used to a reciprocating wall of noise. He shifts in his seat, the leather creaking. Samantha? Marcus prompts, his tone sharp, a warning. Did you hear, Julian? We need a campaign. Samantha feels the burn. It is a physical sensation in her throat, a fiery, desperate urge to speak, to fill the vacuum, to soothe the tension that is now crackling in the air. Her heart rate spikes. She can feel the cortisol flooding her system, the ancient reptilian brain screaming, appease, submit, make the threat go away. The physical sensation of withholding that validation is agonizing. It feels like holding your breath underwater while the surface is just inches away. Every nerve ending in her body is firing, begging her to open her mouth and validate Julian's authority with her compliance. But she holds. She breathes in through her nose, letting the icy air conditioning fill her lungs, grounding her prefrontal cortex. She looks at the bound prospectus. Then she looks back at Marcus. No, she says. The word drops like a stone into a still pond. It is the only word she has spoken since entering the room. Julian lets out a short, incredulous laugh. No? What do you mean, no? The board is demanding visibility. Visibility without substance is just noise, Samantha replies. Her voice is low, measured, unhurried. It carries the heavy, immovable weight of Gravitas. A proactive blitz right now looks defensive. It looks like we're panicking. If we go on every network, we aren't controlling the narrative. We are reacting to the market's fear. We stay silent. We let the integration settle. We speak once when the data supports us. Until then we hold. Julian bristles, his ego stung by the rejection. That is incredibly risky. The silence will be filled by our competitors. Let them fill it, Samantha interrupts, her tone not rising but deepening. Let them talk. When they burn out their budgets on empty spin, we will step in with facts. Silence isn't an absence, Julian. It's a weapon. It creates a vacuum. And the vacuum draws the focus to the only person in the room who isn't panicking. She doesn't ask for their approval. She doesn't smile to soften the blow. She simply states the strategy, Prudentia in action, and then she stops talking. She lets the silence reclaim the room. She lets them sit in the discomfort of her restraint. Here is what is happening inside Samantha's brain at this exact moment. It is called neuroplasticity. For a decade, Samantha has been running a well-worn neural pathway. Stress triggers the amygdala. Amygdala triggers the urge to speak and appease. Speaking triggers a tiny dopamine hit of social validation. The loop resets. Every time she spoke first, every time she scrambled to answer a senior executive, she was pouring concrete over that pathway, making her identity as a people pleaser biologically permanent. But right now in this boardroom, she is executing an identity vote. By sitting in the silence, by feeling the scorching heat of the cortisol spike, and consciously choosing not to act on it, she is activating her prefrontal cortex to override her amygdala. She is physically rewiring her brain. Every second she remains calm during this corporate fire, she is pruning the old fear-based neural connections and forging new ones. She is building the biological infrastructure of Gravitas. The brain is an economy. It allocates resources to what it uses. By starving the people-pleaser pathway of its dopamine reward, she is forcing her brain to invest in the stoic, observant, authoritative pathway. She is no longer just acting like a Roman. Her neurochemistry is becoming Roman. She is voting second by agonizing second for a new identity. And as she looks across the mahogany desk, watching Julian shift uncomfortably under the weight of her quiet authority, she realizes something profound. The silence isn't just protecting her, it is commanding them. 3 weeks later, the restructuring is complete, the dust has settled. Samantha's strategy of strategic silence worked flawlessly. The competitors burned through their PR budgets with empty noise, while her firm's quiet confidence locked down the major market share. But the corporate world is a relentless machine, and it always finds a new way to test the integrity of your armor. It's late Thursday afternoon. The sun is setting over the Boston skyline, casting long, geometric shadows across the executive floor. The smell of expensive cologne and dry erase markers is thick in the air. Marcus Thorne calls her into his office. He closes the heavy oak door behind her. The click of the latch is a corporate trigger, a sound that usually precedes a career execution or a life-altering bribe. Marcus sits on the edge of his desk, a posture of forced casualness. He slides a folded document across the polished wood. "Samantha," he says, his voice smooth, touched with a reverence she has never heard from him before. "You've handled yourself exceptionally well. The board is impressed. The New York team is impressed." He taps the document. "We want to make you senior partner, global head of crisis integration." Samantha looks at the document. She doesn't touch it. She knows what this is. "Triple your base," Marcus continues, leaning in, sensing her hesitation. "Equity stake, a seat at the table, full autonomy over your division. It is the golden handcuff. The ultimate corporate temptation. It is the exact reward the old Samantha had sacrificed her peace, her sleep, and her soul to achieve. It is the ultimate validation. But Marcus isn't just offering a title. He is offering the terms of her enslavement. She reads the subtext in his eyes. She sees the unspoken caveat. You are one of us now. You will work the weekends. You will answer the 2 a.m. calls. You will play the game. You will make the noise we tell you to make. Taking this promotion means trading her newfound Dignitas for a higher-tiered cage. It means sacrificing the Roman peace she has bled to build, surrendering her Comitas and Prudentia to become a highly paid, highly frantic mouthpiece for the board. The physical urge to reach out and grab the document is overwhelming. The people-pleaser inside her is screaming, "Take it! You won! You finally proved them wrong!" She can almost taste the adrenaline of the new title, the intoxicating high of the corporate ladder's highest rung. Her hand twitches. The silence in the room is filled with the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. She looks at the document. Then she looks at Marcus. She thinks of Silas. She thinks of the cold, brutal peace of her living room at 4 a.m. She thinks of the phantom vibrations she finally silenced. Is she building a career, or is she building a cage? Samantha slowly places her hand over the document. Marcus smiles, expecting a grateful handshake. Instead, Samantha slides the paper back across the desk, pushing it right back to him. "I appreciate the offer, Marcus," she says. Her voice is perfectly level, carrying the heavy, undeniable gravity of a woman who knows her worth outside of a corporate signature. "But I can't accept the terms. I'll stay on as crisis manager. My current scope, my current hours. I lead the strategy, and I maintain my silence. That's the deal. Take it or leave it." Marcus's smile vanishes. He stares at her, completely thrown. He has never seen someone turn down the golden handcuff. He has never seen someone choose the quiet over the crown. He is looking at a woman who is no longer motivated by the fear of missing out or the desperate need for his approval. He is looking at a woman who is harder to break. "Take it or leave it, Marcus," she repeats softly. She doesn't blink. She doesn't justify. She lets the silence crush his expectations. Marcus swallows. He looks at the rejected document, then back at the unwavering wall of her presence. He realizes in that quiet, terrifying moment that he cannot buy her and he cannot break her. "Fine," he says, his voice tight. "Your terms." Samantha nods once. She stands, adjusts the lapel of her coat, and walks out of the office. 6 months later, the 14th floor of the Boston high-rise. The office is the same, yet fundamentally different. The harsh fluorescent lights still hum overhead, a low, steady drone that used to signal the start of a panic attack. The air still carries the bitter scent of breakroom coffee and the faint chemical sting of dry-cleaned suits. The Slack notifications still ping on monitors, a relentless digital heartbeat. But as Samantha Jones walks down the corridor, the static is gone. She is stone and flame, unmoving in her core, yet burning with a quiet, lethal purpose. She passes the glass-walled conference rooms where junior executives are frantically pitching, their voices high and strained, filling the air with desperate, empty words. She watches them with a sense of profound, detached clarity. She sees the cage they are building for themselves, wire by wire, word by word. But she doesn't try to save them. She knows the descent is a solitary journey. She carries her tablet, her posture immaculate, her gaze steady. When a senior VP approaches her, panicking over a minor press leak, Samantha doesn't rush to fill the silence. She pauses. She lets the silence do the heavy lifting, forcing the VP to calm down simply to match her frequency. Then she gives a single, precise directive and moves on. She operates with Gravitas, commanding the room not by the volume of her voice, but by the depth of her restraint. She navigates the chaos with Prudentia, seeing the traps before they spring. She exists in the office with Comitas, a quiet authority that demands respect without ever asking for it. The corporate world still spins in its frantic, cortisol-fueled loop, but she stands at the center, unmoved. You didn't click this video to watch a story about a PR manager in Boston. You clicked it because you recognized the cage. You recognized the phantom vibrations, the tightness in your chest when the CEO's name pops up on your phone, the desperate, exhausting need to speak first, speak fast, and fill the silence before it swallows you whole. You are tired of running the cortisol loop. You are tired of trading your dignity for a job title. The Roman system is open. It is a 2,000-year-old operating system built for exactly this kind of chaos. But the first step isn't updating your resume, and it isn't finding a new job. It's adopting a new mindset. It's learning the agonizing, terrifying discipline of keeping your mouth shut when every fiber of your being is begging you to explain yourself. It is building your Gravitas so that when the corporate storm hits, you don't become the noise, you become the anchor. In the comments below, tell me, what is the one corporate rule you are ready to break? The rule that says you have to answer emails at midnight. The rule that says you have to justify your existence in a meeting. Drop it in the comments. Read the other responses. Find your tribe. Because the silence is loud, and we are just getting started.